Let's do it.
So today we have Austin, and he is a personal trainer. And I'm so excited for you guys to just kind of hear his story. And we're going to get into a little bit more too later on strength training and why it is so important, really for all ages. But we'll get into even like as we get older, it just gets more important as we get older. So Austin, welcome. Tell
Thank
us
you.
tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into personal training? Give us the background, the scoop.
Okay. Well, my name is Austin Ellis. I'm a personal trainer at Greater Than Performance and Rehab. I've been here full time about 5 years. I'm 37 years old. Um, I've done lots of different physical activities, but I started when I was younger doing like boxing and taekwondo. And then as I got into like high school age, I just did, this was my first like team sport ever. I started playing football. Didn't even know how many people were on the field. I had to ask the coach when they said split up into your positions. I was like, what am I? Someone has to tell me. Um, so in high school, I did football and track and powerlifting. And then towards the end, I got back into martial arts with doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and then some Muay Thai and some mixed martial arts that I competed in. And then I had around 2010, I had an autoimmune disease that kind of stopped me from being able to do contact sports for about a year. It wasn't really life threatening or anything, but it's disfiguring and painful. And I couldn't sleep well. So anything physical was a lot harder then. And when I started to get better from that, um, I was kind of afraid to get back into jujitsu because the roughing up of the skin might start the stuff up again. So I went to the Cooper Institute and got certified as a personal trainer and got more into weightlifting because it's something I felt I could do safely and I still enjoyed being physical. Um, so I did that like part time as I had other jobs as I got older and then I spent about 5 years not doing any personal training, working at UPS, and it really kind of crushed my soul. I didn't like the work environment and I felt something was missing. Although obviously people need their packages and it's good to help them, but it didn't feel as rewarding as helping people in person, um, like, meet these physical goals or overcome pain or fear around movement. So my friend Amanda, who I did jujitsu with back in the day, said, "Hey, come down to this gym's grand opening." I helped start it up. I came and visited, talked to the owner, met some of the other trainers, really enjoyed their outlook and the model that they were trying to build there. So I got on the team and I've been there ever since going full blast. And I don't think I've made, at least as an adult, I don't think I've made any better choices than leaving UPS and starting up doing this full time. So,
Well, and you get to do your passion and ultimately we all love to have purpose in life and we all love to like help people. Like it's just a human nature of being able to help people. So it's fun to see the transformation. I mean, even on our end, like it's fun to see the transformation, taking someone that's been like in pain for so long and no one's been able to figure them out to like helping them get back to what, something they never thought they could get back to. So it's similar
right.
for you because you have a similar journey with some of your clientele. So tell us a little bit about like kind of your typical client, who you typically see.
Okay. This was almost a hard one for me to answer because I wrote all my clients down and the age span is massive and the different issues. So I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades, but I'd say if there's my biggest wheelhouse is probably those people with chronic pain or overcoming injury that kind of have like a little bit of a mental block, apprehension around movement fear, not understanding pain very well.
Mhm.
And they really just need reassurance and guidance and a fun environment to like build their confidence up again.
Yep.
So I'd say about 50% of my people fit within that bracket, no matter what age or whatever they're doing. But then I also really enjoy working with like youth athletes. And I have a fair bit of people with like neurological issues, non-traumatic spinal cord injury and
Mm.
stroke patients and things like that.
So what do your clients love about what you do?
Well, one, meeting them where they're at, I think is important for every trainer or therapist. One of the divisions I see between physical therapy and trainers is that most of the time trainers get into it. I mean, other than the level of education they get, most trainers get it when they're young. They're already into the gym. They like to lift or do whatever they do. And they started out kind of like baseline. And all they've really learned is how to progress.
Yeah.
How do I get from 100 to 150 or whatever the goal is?
Yeah.
But they don't spend as much time trying to figure out how to regress and potentially help those people that were never at the same baseline they were at. Kind of like how someone who's a supreme athlete may not always be the best coach because they didn't have all the same sorts of struggles that maybe somebody who was, like a little runt had to go through to get to a high level of athleticism, right? Um, so one thing is being able to meet these people where they're at and find challenging, engaging, and safe things for them to participate in that start to make them feel capable again if they don't, or at least just um, find some pleasure in the struggle that is like strength training and
Hmm.
improving yourself, because it's maybe not an innate quality for everybody to like, I'm not going to use the word suffer, but there's definitely struggle involved in trying to change yourself.
It's true
Um,
for everything in life, though. I mean, like if you don't do the hard stuff, you don't actually overcome whatever it is. So if you don't do the hard stuff from a physical perspective of like even weightlifting, you're not going to see the changes. There has to be that struggle. But
mhm.
if you go and do too much too soon, then that's when you can have injuries. And I mean, same thing with like, I mean, anything in life. You can really apply it to anything in life. So um,
For sure.
but the part of like meeting people where they're at is so key, and understanding what they want and learning how to break things down. Sounds like that's exactly kind of what you do to like, well, we're going to start here. Now other people might be
Yep.
able to start here, but we've got to start you here. And let's just, start slow and build up. You got to start somewhere. And, even if you make small changes every single time you come into the gym, you're still going to make changes.
Yep. Um, so yeah, meeting people where they're at, I think is important. And then also, I'm decent at taking more complex ideas, things that maybe I've not mastered, but had a lot of experience in, and bring it down to layman's terms and explain it really well to somebody. Try to be concise, but I'm a little bit over the top with the wordiness sometimes. Um, and finding fun analogies that seem to stick in people's brains that help
Yeah.
them, figure out that next cue for movement or whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
Which is key. I mean, we have to do the same thing because we're dealing with like complex things. And it's like, if you can give someone an analogy, then it's like, oh, and if you can make them understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, the likelihood of them to complete it is high.
Hmm. Yeah,
It just
it,
is.
it really builds that buy-in from them.
Yep.
And I've just always kind of liked educating people. When I was
Well,
young
and,
and you'd take those little tests, it was like, you should be a teacher. So,
and they appreciate it. I mean, you have to give them education as to why you're doing it so that they
mhm.
understand it, because then they can take it with them, no matter what they do, like, oh, I'm doing this because
Yep,
and again, kind of the same thing what I just said before, the likelihood of them just continuing and wanting to continue will just be like so much higher.
for sure.
Okay, so let's get into a little bit about strength training because I think it's something that is overlooked. I think a lot of people, like, especially as we grow up, we tend to like run and cycle and do all the endurance type things, but we don't ever actually do strength training. And so, like, even as we're younger, getting into strength training, and as we get older, it's important to do strength training. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Um, so I kind of consider of all the um, physical attributes that you can train, strength would be like the mother quality in my brain. And I mean, everyone's opinion could differ, but basically, if an organism or a person is stronger, the ability to push your cardiovascular edge probably gets better as well. Your flexibility can improve if you're stronger. Now, obviously, there's diminishing returns. If you want to be a power lifter with a 700-pound bench press, the chances of you being able to scratch your back on your own are pretty low.
Yeah.
But for most people, that's not what they're really going for. They just want competent, confident movement and not feel limited in their daily tasks. And, you know, if something bad or emergent happened, they could get it done. They're not
Yeah.
worried about it. So I think strength training should probably be the core of most people's um, physical endeavors and training. And then obviously, you need cardiovascular health. So everyone should be getting their steps in and doing their baseline cardio because that just improves your recovery, improves all kinds of health markers for us. Um, but as we age, the biggest hit to people's metabolism isn't aging alone, right? So from about 20 to about 60, there's very little drop off in your actual metabolic rate based off like your hormones and what your body is doing. It's primarily a loss of lean tissue, muscle mass over those years that contributes to the lowering of our metabolism, right? And since muscle tissue is metabolically active, even when it's not in use, it kind of gives us this buffer when it comes to like weight gain. If you see someone who primarily uses um, long duration cardio and caloric restriction to maintain their weight, especially for a long period of time, after that 20 to 25, unless you're really gifted genetically or maybe you're using some hormone assistance, if you're not training for some form of strength, then you're slowly losing muscle mass that entire time. And that muscle mass used to burn calories even when you slept.
Yep.
And so now the calories start to creep on you and you add a little bit of weight every year. And then if you're one of those people that primarily does cardio and calorie restriction, the long-term adaptation of long cardio is to lose any excess muscle mass because it's not so efficient. And same thing with calorie restriction. Your body's trying to find this kind of homeostasis. How do I keep these scales balanced? Well, you're not giving me as much anymore, and you're not getting rid of your activity levels. So the only way I know how to balance this equation is get rid of some of this tissue that's always asking for something, you know? And then you got this, runner, cycler, they tweak their ankle, they hurt their knee, and they can't do their preferred activity anymore. And that was the difference between managing their weight and not managing their weight. And when they can't do it anymore, suddenly they balloon up and they're like, oh, it's so hard. But if that same individual maybe had 10 or 15 pounds more muscle mass from strength training and doing their cardio, when they can't do their cardio the way they like anymore, the metabolic difference is not going to be such a big swing for that person because they've got so much active tissue. And you could probably strength train around, a knee injury where maybe you can't go run on a knee injury, right? So, so that's like kind of on the metabolic front. And then, there's lots of good, I don't have any studies ready for you, but, indicators like grip strength is highly correlated to longevity. So as people age, not only does manual dexterity maybe change a little bit, but there's a direct correlation to how hard I can squeeze and grip and how strong my nervous system is. And I think that's probably the biggest bit of that study that talks about longevity is that if you have a strong nervous system and you've got enough muscle mass, your grip strength's usually pretty good. I got some guys that are in their 70s that if they want you to, they'll make you tap out with a handshake, But my guys that are not so healthy in that way, it's like a dead fish hand, right? And that grip strength also is helpful. Let's say you take a fall or something, you can grab onto something and keep yourself up, right? Or pull yourself up off the floor if you do have a fall. And some other things that I think are really important as we age is one is that grip strength is a great indicator. Old school Russian trainers too used to use as an indicator for their training. They test their grip strength in the morning every morning, and they knew about what they could close every morning. But if they couldn't close it one day, it might be a good sign that either, locally your forearms are really tired or your nervous system's kind of beat up from your training and you might need a little bit of a rest day because you're not going to perform as well as you could. And then there's things like foot speed, which is really important for recovering from a misstep or a fall. And then single leg strength, which is going to be really beneficial for like getting up off the ground or, when you do miss a step, can that one leg that you jump in front of you to catch your balance, can it actually sustain your body weight at that high speed? So I think those three things are really big as people get older. If they can really hone in on those qualities and make sure they're good, their chances of their health span and their lifespan meeting up is a lot higher. Because although our lifespans seem to be increasing mostly, health span hasn't really kept up with that, right? So maybe we used to live to be 76. Now people are getting to 82 or 83, but they still start having really steep
But they're not living.
Right, exactly. Their quality of life and their ability to do the things they want diminishes way faster. So, I would never wish to die early, but I think I would prefer to live to 80 and just be full blast and then just fall off a cliff
Yep.
versus live to 85 or 90 and just be going downhill since I was
Yes.
65. So,
100%. Yeah. And I think the other thing that people don't realize too, like your energy levels will pick up, because I know a big thing. My mom was complaining. I mean, I had fixed, she was having some hip stuff, and I fixed her hip stuff and her balance and all that stuff. And she's like, I'm just so tired. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, you're coming to my office and we're going to start training you.
mhm.
We'll do like Pilates. And, she said, okay, we'll see, I'll do it for a month. And she did the first day, and the first day, and not even doing much, she went home and slept because it was so exhausting,
Yeah,
which is very common. So I'm like, don't freak out. Like, when you go in and you haven't done stuff and you're doing something new, you're going to be tired. But
yeah,
then by the second and third, her energy levels picked up. And now, like, for her to go and just even doing yard work and clean out the garage, and like, she can do all these things, where before it was like 5 minutes and she was like, I'm done. Like, I can't do it
yep,
anymore. And she's 82 years old, so she's still active and traveling and doing all this stuff. And she said, like, I think after 6 months, she goes, yep, the rocking chair is getting farther and farther away from me. Like, I don't see it anymore, where she was seeing it
nice.
before. So, and I loved that analogy because it's so true for most people. It's like, they just start seeing, like, oh, my life is going to be different in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years or 20 years. And I'm just like, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality of life that there is some decline, there's some entropy, but the speed with which it happens is mostly up to you and your
Yep.
lifestyle choices.
Yep.
Um, I've said before, I kind of think there's maybe three M's of usefulness, and one of them is mindset,
Yep.
and that's just the idea of having like a growth mindset, not thinking,
Yep.
hey, I'm 40, I don't need to do that anymore, and or I'm 50 and there's no reason to learn a new trick or to do something like that. And not just write yourself off based on your age, and have this mindset kind of like kids do of exploring and testing their limits
Curious.
in safe, yeah, in
Yeah.
safe environments. Another of the M's would be muscle, right? Like we already talked about, it's going to help with fall prevention. It's going to help with your just day-to-day life. It's going to help with your metabolic rate. You can eat a little bit more food if you got a little bit of muscle and not gain so much tummy. It's going to keep activities on the table for you longer. There's all kinds of things. Even cancer survival rates are better when you have more muscle mass going into treatment because of the wasting process. So
Yep.
the more you've got when you start, the better your chances are at the end. If you're talking about, having a hip replacement surgery or something, you take a guy that's 70 and another guy that's 70, and one of them's been um, sedentary and inactive since he retired at 65. And the other one's like, yeah, I cycle a couple times a week with my friends. I play a little racquetball or pickleball or whatever. And, I lift a little weights. I can almost guarantee you, without any kind of acute disaster happening, the guy that's got that lifestyle with lots of movement and staying strong, he's going to recover from that hip replacement way faster than this guy who
Yeah.
has been doing nothing and then has the trauma of a surgery on top of it.
Yeah. I always say,
And
like, if one person's here, one person's here, and you have the surgery, you go here. So, like,
yeah,
pick your poison. What do you want? For the
yeah,
most part. And I know we had a client that we worked together with, where you did a lot of strength training with him before he was going to have a total knee replacement. And he worked with us to work fine tune, like, little small things that we can kind of start getting to fire again before surgery. And he did fantastic.
yeah. It makes a big difference. It seems kind of counterintuitive to people, but some of our PTs also, like, you know, jujitsu player tears their ACL, scheduled the surgery 6 weeks out. Well, for 6 weeks, we're going to get you as strong as humanly
Yeah.
possible without aggravating that knee anymore.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the
and it's easy to
recovery is
do.
so much
I mean,
better.
you can do
Yeah,
so many things with like, you just don't do dynamic stuff, but you can do so many things to strengthen everything around it and make sure that you have full range of motion. That's the other key.
yeah,
And then you're going to start off at a much better starting place.
for sure.
So yeah,
The,
no,
the,
I know we can go on and on because I love
yeah.
this topic. And tell us a little bit about, like, how someone could find you if they're like, "Ooh, I want to go talk to him. I want to work with him."
Okay. Well, you can visit greater than performanceandrehab.com. That's the place that I work at. I primarily only work here. They've got, section with all our different services and different service providers. My email and my cell phone are on there. You can get in touch with me that way. Um, do you want me to say my cell phone on this or
Nah, you know what I'll do?
no? It's
I'm
not
going to go ahead in the description, you'll have the website. So if you go to the
perfect.
description on the podcast or if you go to the description on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the website will be there. So you'll be able to look him up
Okay.
and you can see his name. It's right there. It says Austin Ellis. So
Yep. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. I loved our conversation and I love meeting other different types of practitioners out there. I know we've worked together before with clients, so
Hmm.
I think it's always awesome to get good information out there, hear their story, so people know about them.
Thanks for having me.